Whatever you do, never give up your beliefs for someone else. Your values are what you hold most dear. I had the misfortune to meet someone toxic, and I'll use my story as a testimony. My name is Kimmy, a 17-year-old girl from Ivory Coast and a devout Christian. Before we continue with the story, do not forget to click the notification button in order to get notified at every new video posted. Thank you. My encounter with faith happened when I was 13. My parents were going through a period of trouble in their relationship. They were about to separate. And as the only child, I was the most affected by the situation. I had no one to turn to, so I decided to pray and read the Bible. And that's how little by little my faith grew to the point where that feeling of peace I had inside helped me ease the tension between my parents. By the grace of God, I succeeded in reconciling them through the strength of prayer and dialogue. And seeing the miracle that faith had brought in my family, I swore never to let go of prayer again. My parents, for their part, did not hesitate to follow my footsteps. That's how all three of us began to attend a church that gradually became a second family to us. At the age of 15, I made a firm decision to keep my virginity until marriage in order to please God. I had realized how much keeping your body pure pleased God, and in order to materialize my promise, I made the decision to get baptized. That's how the following year, when I was 16, I met a brother in Christ named Shadrach, who had just arrived in town and who also was in the same class as me. Since we had the same values, we quickly became friends and inseparable. We prayed, did our homework, and hung out together. Moreover, our respective parents did not find it inconvenient for us to be close. Obviously, neither of us had bad impact on the other. As you might have guessed, little by little, we got closer to the point of being a couple. But don't worry, our relationship remained totally pure, according to the will of God. Besides, it was Shadrach himself who wanted us not to meet in places where we would be totally alone for fear of breaking our commitment to God. However, he had made me a promise, that of asking my hand in marriage on my 17th birthday. And he kept his promise. On my 17th birthday, in strict privacy, he got down on one knee and asked for my hand in marriage, something that I accepted only on one condition, that of getting married when we would be 22 after having stable jobs. He totally agreed. Anyway, it made sense. To be able to get married, you have to be financially ready to take on the responsibilities of adult life. Another unspoken condition of our engagement was that we would not break our vows of chastity until our wedding day. Obviously, as a Christian couple, we had to hold on until we got God's blessing. Everything was going out smoothly in our relationship. Him and I continued to grow in prayer and in faith. And when we turned 18, we finally had the approval of our respective parents to be able to spend the weekend together since we were already adults. And so a month after writing our high school diploma exams, my fiancé suggested that we go on an excursion in the great outdoors. He had just gotten his driver's license and with the help of his savings had managed to buy a used car. It was an opportunity for us to test it out. So I accepted without hesitation. Not far from our city, there was some kind of natural park with a lot of green space and trees. And in the middle of this nature, there was a path that allowed cars to circulate. We had therefore prepared spare clothes for 2 days, provisions, and the strict necessary to keep us warm during this adventure. And so that Friday, we took the road to the park. The journey was supposed to last about 2 hours, and we had to stop at the edge of a lake near which we were going to pitch our tents for the night. You know, nothing really complicated. The goal was just to spend time together, and so it was after an hour and a half of travel that my fiancé made me understand that he had seen some sort of a dead animal in the middle of the path. Before I could even ask a question, he went down to get a closer look to the animal. I stayed in the car fiddling with my phone, and after 15 minutes, I started worrying that it was taking so long. So trying to open the window to see what was happening, I saw the silhouette of a man dressed in all black and hooded heading towards me running. Panicking, I tried to start the car, but unfortunately, I couldn't drive. I panicked, and instead of locking myself inside, I decided to run with all my might, hoping to find help. In my heart, I started reciting prayers, trying to escape this man who was coming towards me, obviously with bad intentions. In the aftermath, I felt kind of like a shock behind my head, and suddenly it was a black hole. I just remember that I found myself at the edge of the lake towards which we were going with my fiancé, wrists and ankles tied up, with a man digging some kind of a hole beside me. When I was able to regain consciousness, I began to beg him, asking him to let me go, promising not to tell anyone. I begged him not to hurt me, and that if he needed money, we could just turn around in the direction of the car because I had some in my suitcase. Then the man did not make any sound and continued to dig. When he was done, he walked up to me with a hunting knife and started cutting up my clothes. I had all kinds of scenarios running through my head. I thought that maybe he was going to abuse me before he killed me and got rid of my body. The feeling of knowing that I was going to experience atrocities was unbearable. I thought of my family, my friends, my fiancé who had also disappeared. And God, why was he letting me go through this? Before bursting into tears, I made myself a promise that if I came out of this situation unscathed, I would strengthen my faith even more. So at the end of the prayer, something rather strange happened. The man who seemed intent to hurt me stopped, looked me in the eye, and started backing away. After retreating for about 10 meters, he began to run towards the bush. Frightened, I thought that maybe he had forgotten a tool that he wanted to use to finish me up, so I didn't make a single sound. I remained completely still for fear of irritating him. I laid on the damp floor, half naked, with tears continuing to roll on my cheeks as I persisted to pray. It was in the midst of all this pleas to God that I heard a voice that sounded familiar. I heard someone shouting, "Gimme," in the distance. And the closer the voice got, the more I felt I knew it, until I recognized my fiancé. He walked towards me with his wrists tied up. He too seemed to have been attacked. When I saw him, I started screaming with all my might so he could spot me from where I was laying. He came to my rescue and untied me. Then we made the decision to leave this place before the man came back to finish up with us this time. We no longer had a car or warm clothes and talk less of food. All that remained was prayer and the desire to survive in this hostile environment. Shadrach and I roamed the bush in search of food on our way home. Unfortunately, that day we could not find our way to the city. This is how we had to create a makeshift shelter with branches and leaves to be able to spend the night. During that cold night, my fiancé made a strange proposal. He suggested that we had sexual intercourse in order to warm ourselves up. I was shocked by the proposal, and when I wanted to answer him, he just gave me the most absurd reason. He told me that it was only for our survival that he was proposing this to me. I categorically refused because of my faith, and he dropped the matter until the next morning when he came back with it. I was so exasperated by his proposal at such a critical moment that we ended up arguing. This is how he hit me hard and abused me. This act, I was so scared that I couldn't say a single word. Mortified by all that had just happened, I was unable to defend myself. I became afraid of him. I had just seen a face of him that I had never seen before, and for fear of further violence, I continued to obey him. He asked me to get up and walk behind him. I had no other choice, so I followed him. And after about 20 minutes of walking, we joined the car with which we had come. It had no scratches. It hadn't even been broken into. We got inside and it was intact. It was then that I realized what had just happened. Shadrach had lured me into this trap. Knowing that I had made him promise to preserve our chastity until marriage, he set a trap for me so that we would be both alone, so as to enable him to commit his crime. Driving towards the city, he tried to convince me that these actions were inspired to him by the devil, that he was sincerely sorry for what he had just done. I faked forgiveness, and when I got home, I immediately told the whole story to my parents. After having established a medical certificate which attested that I had been abused, with the help of my parents, I filed in a complaint for rape. Despite the fact that he denied it, the medical certificate with the doctor's report was vital. My ex-fiancé is now serving a 25-year sentence for rape and kidnapping in the central prison. I have to admit that I must be lucky he didn't kill me.